Not even a plea from the Pope could change his mind. Today, U.S. President Donald Trump kept his campaign promise and made the U.S. the first country to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The Palestinians calling Trump's decision the kiss of death for peace in the Middle East. Tonight, the U.S. State Department telling U.S. embassies in the region to be on guard as 3 days of rage begin. I'm Brent Goff in Berlin. This is The Day.
Today, we finally acknowledge the obvious, that Jerusalem is Israel's capital. This is nothing more or less than a recognition of reality. It is also the right thing to do. It's something that has to be done. I am also directing the State Department to begin preparation to move the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. This decision is not intended in any way to reflect a departure from our strong commitment to facilitate a lasting peace agreement. We want an agreement that is a great deal for the Israelis and a great deal for the Palestinians. Today we call for calm, for moderation, and for the voices of tolerance.
Also coming up tonight, Time's 2017 Person of the Year, the Silence Breakers.
A message that we heard echoed across from Susan Fowler, from Adama, from Selma, from Ashley, from all of these women. We heard again and again this sense of enough. It's not my fault, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Well, we begin the day in Jerusalem with what was expected to be an explosive break with U.S. policy in the Middle East by President Donald Trump. Today, Trump announced plans to move the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem as the United States becomes the first country, the only country in the world to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Warnings from U.S. allies in the Middle East and Europe and even a plea from the Pope were not enough to change Trump's mind. But Trump hammered the point that the U.S. has not changed its support for a two-state solution or its decades-long position that Jerusalem's status should be settled as part of a peace deal between both Israelis and Palestinians. So was this decision more than just Trump keeping a campaign promise to his base? I'll ask that and more in just a moment. But first, here's more of what the U.S. president said today.
I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. While previous presidents have made this a major campaign promise, they failed to deliver. Today, I am delivering. This is nothing more or less than a recognition of reality. It is also the right thing to do. It's something that has to be done. That is why, consistent with the Jerusalem Embassy Act, I am also directing the State Department to begin preparation to move the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. This decision is not intended in any way to reflect a departure from our strong commitment to facilitate a lasting peace agreement. We want an agreement that is a great deal for the Israelis and a great deal for the Palestinians. We are not taking a position of any final status issues, including the specific boundaries of the Israeli sovereignty in Jerusalem or the resolution of contested borders. Those questions are up to the parties involved.
That was U.S. President Donald Trump there. Well, the Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas says that the U.S. has abdicated its role as a peace negotiator in the Middle East. Abbas reacting to President Trump's decision to recognize the contested city of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. He says that the city is, quote, the eternal capital of Palestine, and he called the move deplorable and unacceptable. He said that it would undermine peace efforts. All right, where do we go from here? Well, to talk about that, I'm joined tonight by Karsten Van Namen in Washington. And here at the big table with me, Jason Isaacson, a policy director with the American Jewish Committee here in Berlin. And to his right, Akram Baker, a Middle East analyst and a former advisor to the Palestinian Authority. To all of you, it's good to have you on the show. Karsten, let me start with you. The U.S. president, as we heard there, hammered the point that nothing is really changing except the address of the U.S. embassy, or at least that's what he wants us to think. Was this the speech that the world was expecting?
In a way, yes, because the White House had been advertising the contents of the speech through different channels for the last 48 hours or so. So basically, the line that was communicated there was, first of all, this is what Donald Trump promised during his election campaign, and he wants to keep his promise. Also, this is about acknowledging the reality on the ground. This is also to implement a law which has been there for 22 years already. In 1995, Congress passed the Jerusalem Embassy Act, which calls for exactly that, what Donald Trump announced today. And then also that Donald Trump remains committed to the peace process in the Middle East. So that is the line that has been communicated. Also, it's quite interesting to look at Donald Trump and see how he says, well, this is an approach that has been tried before. Let's try something new. It's quite clear Donald Trump thinks he's smarter than anyone, even though, to put it mildly, he doesn't know a lot about the world. But, well, he's giving it a try.
I think you put that exactly, you brought it right to the point there, Karsten. You know, when I was listening to the speech today, I had the impression that we were hearing Donald Trump, the real estate mogul, trying to push a deal through and not wanting geopolitics and symbolism to come into play today. Did you get that impression?
He wants to try something different. He says that what we've been trying for decades hasn't worked. He doesn't see, and I think he's right, that there has to be an impediment to moving forward on a peace process if you just recognize the reality that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Its government offices are based there. When foreign leaders come to Israel, where do? They go to Jerusalem. And he's just saying that should not get in the way of moving forward on a peace process.
But how does that forward or push peace forward?
Why should it make a problem?
Well,
why do people have to react so hysterically to a fact that is a fact of life and that doesn't interfere with religious access, doesn't interfere with the rights of Christians and Muslims to worship in holy places in Israel, in Jerusalem, alongside Jews? Doesn't interfere with, frankly, it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, I mean, Akram, he has a point, right?
Symbolically,
nothing's going to change in Jerusalem, according to
well, I mean, the status quo in and of itself is absolutely horrific. And what it does, it has legitimized the Israeli occupation of Jerusalem on the part of what it's done is Donald Trump has succeeded in putting the final nail into the coffin.
Well, he didn't say he did not mention East Jerusalem in his speech today, though. He said nothing about that, and he said it's still up to the Palestinians and the Israelis to decide the status and the final status of Jerusalem.
Then why do this? This is completely oxymoronic. I mean, his statements have the credibility of his statements that he didn't commit sexual assault have. We know that what he is doing has completely thrown a firebomb into U.S. and international policy and international law over the last 30 years. He has completely, simply destroyed it.
Jason, I mean, do you believe the U.S. president?
No, let me say, if you want an excuse to not move forward, this is yet another excuse to not move forward. But the Palestinians have had so many years of excuses to not move forward. And I think what the president is saying is we're tired of it. We're facing the reality. We are still committed to moving forward. America has the credibility and has the experience, has the staff to work with both parties, has the stature to work with both parties, is recognized by other powers in the world as the main engine to try to drive this forward, and he still wants to do that.
Yeah, I mean, but the reaction, the warnings, I mean, no one besides the Israelis supported the decision today.
Although it wasn't pushed by the Israelis.
No, that's true. I mean, Netanyahu has been rather quiet about all of this. It's true. But, you know, when you've got all your allies saying you shouldn't do this, the Saudis and the Iranians, were on the same side for a change. Why do this when in January you want to present what's called the ultimate peace plan. What's going to happen to that now?
Well, let's see what the next stages are. It may be that this will fit into a larger game plan that the president has, but it should not. We should not allow people to use this as an excuse for either inertia or hysteria.
Okay.
But what you're using it for is an excuse to perpetuate the Israeli occupation. And the fact of the matter is that Donald Trump claims to be the great negotiator. This has got to be one of the worst negotiating strategies I've ever seen in my life, is that he's giving up something. He's changing the status quo without getting anything in return.
Well, and that we know of, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the thing.
Don't judge the deal on the opening bid.
I can judge the deal by what I see, and what I see is Donald Trump is a petulant child who is just seeing that all of the other United States presidents have not done this, and he wants to do something else. And again, he's doing this to do nothing but appease the hard right wing of Israeli society and his evangelical followers, and to deflect from his own domestic problems at home.
No, do you think that, I mean, let me pull in Carson here with that too. Carson, what about this notion that Trump is using this announcement today to deflect attention from the investigation that's going on in the States concerning his campaign team and the Russians?
Well, it's difficult to prove, but there seems to be sensible. I mean, what is quite clear is, or there are two things, basically, I would like to point out. First of all, I'm pretty sure that Donald Trump really believes that this is the right thing to do, that Jerusalem should be recognized as the capital of Israel and that the embassy should move there. He has said that before, and I think he really believes that. But the other thing is that he also seems to have decided that the most important thing for him is to please his base. His approval ratings are bad, and his base for now is sticking with him, and he needs that base both to control the establishment of the Republicans in Congress and to have any chance to be re-elected in a few years.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. I kept thinking today when I was listening to this speech, why do this? Why not wait until January and unveil this peace plan, have the goodwill on both sides, and then as part of that plan, then you can move your embassy? Wouldn't that be easier?
Maybe, and I'd be in a better position to answer it if I knew all of the other details of the plan, the other stages that he's setting forth. It may just be that he is exercising leadership, and he's doing what, in his eyes as a leader who is going to lay out a plan, sees as an opening step, as a first important step to demonstrate that he's on the side of the reality that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. And then let's see what the other stages are. Keep in mind what he did not say today. He didn't talk about eternally undivided Jerusalem. He didn't talk about the borders of Jerusalem. He talked about Jerusalem being the capital of Israel. That doesn't preclude it being the capital of Palestine.
Well, I mean, yeah, he didn't say East Jerusalem. That is true. I mean, it was obvious that he was trying to avoid that. And we've got reaction from Netanyahu and from Saeb Erekat from the Palestinians. If we could take a listen to those.
This step is prejudging, dictating, closing doors for negotiations, and I think President Trump tonight disqualified the United States of America to play any role in any peace process. The Palestinian leadership will call for an emergency session for the Palestine Central Council to study this speech and to review all the options available and take the proper decisions concerning many issues. At the same time, I would say that crossing these red lines tonight for President Trump, speaking about moderation, speaking about nonviolence, I think tonight he is strengthening the forces of extremists in this region as no one has done before. This is an act, a statement that's totally uncalled for, totally unacceptable. Jerusalem is occupied territories. No country on earth have recognized Israel annexation of East Jerusalem except for President Trump tonight. He is in total violation of international law, human rights, and he's turning the conflict between Palestinians and Israelis from a political one into a religious one. That's a very dangerous situation.
Erekat, they are visibly, I mean, emotional. This is a man who's upset, yeah?
I mean, I know Mr. Erekat quite well,
yeah?
And I've rarely seen him like this. And the truth of the matter is that Donald Trump has committed diplomatic arson. And when he said he has strengthened the hand of the extremist, he basically just succeeded in becoming the chief propagandist for ISIS and every extremist in the Islamic world right now. If I may exaggerate but he's giving everybody an excuse right now. He is completely disarming any kind of moderates in the Arab and Muslim world.
But what about everything he did say in the speech, though, today, that nothing has changed in terms of what the United States wants to do, and that the United States wants the Palestinians and the Israelis to find a solution together. None of that has changed. So if the Palestinians say the U.S. is no longer a peace broker for us, who's the replacement?
First of all, it's nonsense. And second of all, if you spend years inciting violence and celebrating martyrdom, and then the president makes a statement and you say, oh, there's going to be violence, who can be surprised? But that is not what responsible Palestinian leadership should be doing. What it should be saying is, we disagree with aspects of what the president has said, and we want to negotiate a deal that actually works for our people and provides us with a state that we deserve and a capital that we deserve as well. They can do that. But if instead what you see is arson references and days of rage, we're not going to go forward. We're going to go backward.
I'm sorry, Jacob. We've been doing this for 25 years. And actually, you and I have been doing this because we met in Madrid in 1991.
Indeed.
And we're going over the same thing again and again. And the Israeli occupation is the main violence in this conflict. It's not the odd stone thrower or firebomber. The occupation is violent. And the occupation has been perpetuated consistently and accelerated throughout this peace process, as you know. And the status of Jerusalem has been unilaterally changed by Israel through its settlement policy. And now the United States, the United States has taken its last fig leaf of a neutral observer.
But why do you think? Why didn't the U.S. president, though, if he wants to take this step, why didn't he also say, we also recognize East Jerusalem as the future capital of Palestine?
Well, nor did he say we recognize West Jerusalem. He wasn't. He was saying.
I know, but what I'm saying
have to negotiate.
I know, but the point is, if he says that we recognize the capital of Israel is Jerusalem, why not go the next step and say, and for the future state of Palestine, we recognize it will be East Jerusalem? Why didn't he say that?
I think he wants the parties to work it out themselves. It's not for him to dictate that.
But he just dictated something right now.
I disagree.
All right, let's take a listen to what Netanyahu had to say after the U.S. president spoke.
Yet today's pronouncement by President Trump is such an occasion. We're profoundly grateful for the president for his courageous and just decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and to prepare for the opening of the U.S. embassy here. This decision reflects the president's commitment to an ancient but enduring truth, to fulfilling his promises, and to advancing peace. The president's decision is an important step towards peace, for there is no peace that doesn't include Jerusalem as the capital of the state of Israel. I call on all countries that seek peace to join the United States in recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and to move their embassies here. I share President Trump's commitment to advancing peace between Israel and all of our neighbors, including the Palestinians.
All right. We were talking here. You can't help but think there's a real estate plot here behind all of this. Let me ask you, gentlemen, before we run out of time, the U.S. says, the president says he's sending his vice president next week to the region. We know that he has a team, his foreign policy team with Jared Kushner. They have this ultimate peace plan that's supposed to be unveiled in January. What's going to happen when they show up and they want to talk to the Palestinians now?
I cannot believe they will not see the Palestinians. It boggles my mind to think that somehow the greatest superpower with the deepest experience and a peacemaker for decades is going to be somehow shunned by an upset Palestinian leadership.
Is Abbas going to say no? I won't talk with you.
Unfortunately, I don't know how much of a legitimate leader he is himself.
Yeah, well, true.
To put it bluntly there. However, I think if the Palestinians do meet them, then they will have lost every last bit of little credibility they have with the Palestinian people.
Oh, that would be so regrettable.
All right. Jason Isaacson, Akram Baker, gentlemen, thank you very much. Karsten Phenomen in Washington. Karsten, thank you.